this whole valley of Oaxaca, the Central Valley, used to be a lake when our ancestors arrived here the first time, and that's how it's remembered in our stories. And you know, something like 10,000 years ago to 9,000 years ago, our ancestors started to build this relationship with corn, which is the plant that we now eat. And corn actually dictates a lot of our current traditions, even though they're masked as Christian traditions. Like our patron saint now is the precious blood of Christ, who's celebrated on the Wednesday, on the first Wednesday of July. But that date, it's the peak of corn planting. And we're doing that celebration with a feather dance, like an ancient ghost dance or rain dance, to pray for the rain, you know, to ask for rain and for good harvest. And then Day of the Dead, you know, we're celebrating the death of the corn. The corn starts to turn yellow in November. In October, we get the last rains. So Day of the Dead, All Saints Day, you know, it's just a mask to cover ancient rhythms and patterns of nature that we have observed and respected for thousands and thousands of years. So, you know, that kind of knowledge, our ancestors took an ancient grass, which is called teocintle, which grew up to a meter and produced maybe 4 to 6 grains of corn or kernels into the corn that we now eat, you know, that has probably 40 or something. And they started to build this relationship with the corn, and as much as they changed the DNA of the corn also changed our DNA, you know, it affected us. It provided this amazing source of nutrition, because corn is really nutritive if you know how to cook it and if you eat it with all the other plants that grow around it in the first food forest. But we'll go into that later. But that's just to highlight some of the achievements that our people started to build by living on this place respectfully and in harmony for at least 20,000 years. Other examples, you probably have been to Monte Alban or Mitla. So Monte Alban, just to throw a few like world-killing phrases, it took 1,000 years to build. So imagine like all these little towns, Zapotec towns that come together. They were fighting each other first, but then they, you know, they kind of signed peace and they came together to work on a common project for 1,000 years. There's very few places in the world that have had 1,000 years with no wars. You know, golden eras of civilizations. We speak of sometimes 6 mother cultures in the world. Of course, there's more, but the main ones we know, you know, the Egyptians, the Mesopotamians, the Chinese, the Incas. Here, we could put them in different names. We could use the Anahuac culture or civilization. That it's an umbrella under which, you know, the Mayans, the Toltecs, the Zapotecs, the 17 different cultures in Oaxaca fit in. But also, you know, all the way north to North America and probably Canada. And what unites these cultures are, first, the same way to relate with nature, you know. It's that same way that we use. The other is the calendar system, which is the moon calendar, which has 260 days. And it's a combination of 13 numbers and 20 days, which when you multiply gives 260, which is 9 months, the average gestation period of a human. There's 13 moon cycles in a year. And then we have the solar calendar, which has 18 numbers and 20 days, which when you multiply gives you 360 days. On top of which they added 5 what they called unlucky days. We'll have those. The 5 days that they used to do ceremony and fastings and meditate in order to complete the solar cycle. And then they also use the calendar of Venus, which has something like 584 days. And first, the solar and the moon calendar, they in this way they work, like, you know, like years. They coincide every 52 years. And then this calendar system, this is then matched, synchronized with the Venus calendar system. And instead of adding like 1 day every 4 years to account for that little part of the year, because the year is 365 days plus like 20% or something. I don't know if it's 20 minutes or something. But just the way our astronomers have calculated this, you know, it took them, you know, modern technology using atomic clocks and, you know, electronic instruments to do the calculations to figure out that for example, the Mayan calendar system has a 0.019 splits of a second of error per year. You know, given how they were synchronizing all these 3 calendars. So they not only understood their place on Earth, but also their place on the heavens. And a lot of what I'll tell you about with the symbols is how this, you know, in the human experience, heaven and earth meet. And that's part of the essence of what our ancestors were doing. You know, Monte Alban, we call it dying baths. Dying, the word da is the same for like dad, which means elder. This is a male word too. There's some patriarchy there. But in is dying, so the in, it denotes divinity. So like sacred elder. So to say mountain, you say sacred elder. And then jaguar means a lot of things, like baz. Means, for example, let's start with something powerful, like it means to say bazgin is the seed of the chili, you know, that fiery, spicy chili, but also, you know, the seed. Also to say, for example, testicle, you say baz. To say newly born baby, you say bado baz. It's there, it's the baz. To say incense holder, you say bazgin. To say, what else? But anyway, so for very sacred, delicate things, you know, we have this word baz. And for things that are also powerful, like seeds and that. So, you know, just that shows you also how carefully they chose the language, and you know, how they were, you know, analyzing not just the objects, but the subtle energy flows from object to object. Kind of like the yin and yang in Chinese culture. There's words with that. Yeah. But there's many sounds, so every sound has a different use for different objects. So I was saying, you know, Monte Alban is this sacred jaguar mountain that is designed to elevate our spirit. You know, it's a natural altar that raises our spirit from the earth to the heavens. And you know, like again and again, we'll see this pattern of you know, transcending, like, you know, humanity and trying to see the big pattern, the big you know, the bigger picture, and to understand those patterns, because a lot of what we see in nature and what we are trying to understand are the patterns of nature, and ourselves, our psychology, or psyche is nothing more than patterns. Or DNA is sacred geometry, you know, the double helix, and the ADCTG, you know, like colors arranged in a certain and specific way. All that knowledge was distilled and it was woven on our textiles. It was written in books that were burned when the Spanish invade and destroyed these cultures. And a lot of it was carved in stone too, even though those stones, some of them got destroyed, but the knowledge that has proven the more resilient is the oral knowledge, the knowledge that you share, the knowledge that you weave. You know, when we learn how to make these rugs, we memorize the counting and the patterns, but also the stories that go with it, the names of the patterns, and also, you know, just in my personal journey and in searching for my own identity and my own, you know, meaning on life, I've kind of spent some more time thinking about all these patterns and what do they mean. From my perspective, you know, I might have my own interpretation of the ancient stories, archaeological evidence and readings, and just a general understanding of life. So that's what I want to share with you now. So we could start with, well, okay, let's go over there. With that pattern, which is the very first pattern that we'll study. It's the pattern that you get when you join your hands in this way, like that. See? So you could do it with your hand like a mudra. See? And just like we have 4 knuckles, we have 4 steps. 1, 2, 3, 4. And each step, they say that it represents 13 years. So we go from 0 to 13 to 26, 39 to 52. So we call this the life cycle pattern, and this is the growth stage. And for a long time I was asking myself, why does it take 13 years, you know, from conception to birth? Well, there's a few, you know, another example. There's 13 years before a woman starts ovulating. And also, our journey in life doesn't start with birth. In fact, half of our, or most of our DNA, I don't know exactly, but it starts in our grandmother's womb. And I only found that out recently too, because our mothers produce all the eggs that they're gonna ovulate in a lifetime in our grandmother's womb. So that journey starts, you know, way over there, linking us to our great-great-grandmothers, and we could go back